Welcome to League Night, everybody. Today, Jason and I talk about hitting in USA versus USSSA softball. Talk about what kind of bats we like for each. Is it in load? Is it balanced? Is it both? Is it neither? Check it out. Let's start with, since nobody knows who we are, who are you? Why don't you tell the people?
Well, I'm your co-host. No, my name's Jason. Grew up in the Bay Area. Been playing softball since, after college. I did not start playing somewhat competitive softball until 2011, maybe. So I've probably been playing for about 10 years. Played at all different kind of levels. Played U-Trip, played ASA, composite, non-composite. So in the 10 years that I have been playing, I've seen a little bit of everything. I played baseball from 7 through high school. So I did have some formal baseball training, but surprisingly, baseball training only goes so far when it comes to slow pitch softball. You know,
So true.
hitting a ball that's going very slow and very high is nothing like hitting a fastball.
So true. Right on. So my name's Cameron. Actually not too different. I started baseball when I was as young as I could, whatever it was, first grade or something. Was absolutely terrible. My parents just didn't play sports, really. They didn't have any problem with it. They just didn't do it. So I didn't really play with them as a kid. So I was the kid that they threw into right field. They're like, it's fine. Cam will be over there. We don't have to worry about him over there. But I didn't know any better. So I actually just kept, whenever you go to a new team, your coach would be like, what do you play? I'm like, I play right field. You know, you just tell them what you've always played. And I just ended up getting good at it because that's where I always was. So I became an outfielder through like Little League and everything. And then played middle school, played a little bit of infield in middle school, but not much. Then played varsity, played high school baseball. And then I didn't start playing softball, kind of similar to you. Probably would have been, so I didn't probably play anything because I didn't play baseball either after high school. So I probably didn't play anything until I was like 25, 26, something like that. So I had like a good 8-year gap or so. And then I probably started playing maybe like whatever that was, 10 or 12 years ago. Is that right? I don't know if my math's probably not right on that, but whatever it is.
We won't hold you to it.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm from Illinois, so I actually played some ball in central Illinois where I'm from. I played some in northern Illinois up around Chicago suburbs. I played some USSSA, ASA, same thing, metal bats as well as composite bats, co-ed and open. I've played tournaments. I've played leagues. I've played pickup. I've done a little bit of everything, seen a little bit of everything. Certainly not an expert, but I've got a little bit of background in it, so I guess I have some.
You have enough background to form an opinion, and that's why we're here.
And it may or may not be a good opinion, but I have formed one, damn it. So
that's for the listeners to decide.
Yeah, right? That's for you to decide. Yeah, so I say we jump in. I think our first topic we're going to talk about today was going to be some USSSA versus ASA/USA. Mainly reason we decided to do that is that we both played some ASA this week, and we're both playing some USSSA this weekend. So we're both doing both in the same week. And I don't know if I don't think the discussion necessarily needs to be about if one's better than the other, because I don't really think they are. I don't know about you, but like differences of like approach that you do or that you take into account, if you take any into account. Do you just like go up there and just hack and don't care, or like, you know, what comes to mind when you're like, oh man, I gotta play? I'll use U-Trip as an example because we play more ASA, I think. You know, I gotta play U-Trip this weekend because, you know, we've got a tournament, but I've been playing ASA. Like, what goes through your head? Like, what are you thinking? What is the mindset change?
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know, both of us play league in San Francisco here, and it's solely ASA/USA softball. So, you know, we're with the 6 to 12 foot pitch, no pump fakes, none of that dancing stuff on the mound. And the strike zone it lands on the plate, it's a strike, you know? Rough. And when we flip into the U-Trip tournaments here in the Bay Area, we're looking at something like a 3 to 10 foot pitch, you know, as long as the pitcher starts on the mound, they can spin their arm in a circle 10 times. They can throw it without you being ready. You know, they can do kind of whatever they want up there on the mound. And it only has to be 3 to 10 feet off the ground.
I did find out, I didn't know this, there's apparently a 5-second rule for those pitchers.
Ooh.
I didn't know that. So if they take more than 5...
Should we call this the Giannis rule?
Yeah, right.
It takes too long on the free throw line?
Yeah, apparently if they like try to like do all the weird dance moves and deke you out for longer than 5 seconds, the ump can just call it a ball. I didn't know that. I just learned that today or yesterday. So
dropping knowledge.
Fun fact, right?
Is that how you're going to get followers? You're just going to drop these nuggets of information?
I'm going to learn something stupid, and I'm just going to drop it in the podcast and be like, look how smart this guy is.
Man, I'm getting an education on this thing today. Good to know. The other thing is, the strike zone is when the ball crosses the plate.
Yeah.
It obviously has to be within the bounds of the plate itself, but it's front shoulder to back hip and front hip to back knee. So there's kind of like that trajectory that it has to come through the strike zone.
Does that change
what you're really getting at is
how you
there's
do it?
a bunch of gray area for the umpire to decide what they want.
Yeah.
So, you know, one thing that I think I've noticed a lot of in my approach is that when I'm playing League, you're kind of out there to hack, right? You know, you're not going to swing at a strike if it's not really your pitch, but you're going to go up there and plan to try to swing the bat most of the time.
Yeah.
I think that's in general a League strategy is I didn't pay to come out here 8 nights a week or 8 nights a month and, you know, just walk. No one wants that.
Yeah.
You know, but you're a lot more selective when it comes to these tournaments because, you know, you're out there trying to win some hardware. And these USSSA tournaments, sometimes they even give you rings. And we can get into that.
It's
a whole different time.
It's so crazy. But whatever.
You know, they're giving you something that actually is tangible as opposed to here's a t-shirt with the name of the season and the year.
I like t-shirts, League. Keep giving out t-shirts. Don't stop. I appreciate that. But yes.
You know, so the first thing is like looking at how I'm approaching things at the plate because you're dealing with different timing. You know, your arc is different. So you're kind of looking at, I typically find myself standing up in the box a little bit more just because with the lower pitch trajectory, I still want to try to get something that's waist high or higher.
Yep.
Because I really feel like I can drive that. You know, when you're getting those low pitches, one of the things that we constantly talk about is a flat swing. And if it's below your waist, it's really hard to swing flat.
You got to uppercut. You don't have a choice. Yeah.
So I try to stand up in the box to make sure that the pitch is coming in higher for me. And the other thing is, for me, I find that in ASA, I'm actually timing off of the release of the pitch because I take kind of like a load back.
Okay.
But with the pump fakes, you really can't do that because of the fact that if they pump fake, you've already loaded and now your balance is kind of thrown off. So that's kind of what I do when I'm up there. And I mean, the other thing that we can get into once we kind of cover that is, you know, we're talking about 5-man infields now. So the strategy of just trying to hit a line ball back up the middle kind of takes a different strategy because there's somebody standing there now, right? So how do we change that approach? And I think part of what I do is getting up there in the plate a little bit more gives me that waist to shoulder pitch that I can try to line over the infielders, even if there are 5, to try to find a gap out there.
And I feel like too, because I've seen 5-man, we've both seen 5-man in ASA as well, but I feel like as long as there's a fence, it's one of my pet peeves out here in San Francisco. And it may not be San Francisco specifically, it may just be playing ball in the city, is that,
and
like,
to clarify, it's the lack of a fence in the city.
There is no fence, yes, and it drives me insane. But anyway, for offense and defense, you know, if there is a fence, we've seen some ASA 5-man. But I feel like with U-Trip, not to dog on the ASA pitchers, but I feel like it's much more expected in U-Trip that the pitcher throws his pitch and then he backs. So, you know, if you got your middle infielder like shifted to one side or the other, he actually will specifically back up into that more open space and try to get in a position to make a play. And not to say that the ASA pitchers don't, because I've definitely seen some great plays from ASA pitchers, but it's more like some ASA pitchers who are particularly good will do that, whereas it seems like almost all the U-Trip that we face, at least, make some sort of attempt to do that. So it may just be a cultural game thing. I don't know, but definitely agree there. I am similar in U-Trip where I am up in the box more. I'm closer to the pitcher more than I am in ASA. But it is that I was actually surprised you said that you kind of take the timing of the pitch into account. I guess I don't know. I guess I just never do. I don't like even load up until that ball is almost like, well, maybe a little sooner in U trip because it doesn't go as high, but in ASA, like, I'm not even fully loaded until like that ball's probably at the peak of its, the highest point. So I'm more of a just track it. Whatever the pitcher doesn't really bother me, I guess. Maybe it's just 'cause I'm not paying attention to them so much. I'm just honing in on the ball. But yeah, I just try to hone in on the ball. And again, the lower pitches are a little weird because for whatever reason, like when I really get into a ball, it usually is high. Like it's usually one that I meet about letter high. Those are the ones I really will just, those are the ones I destroy, and then the ones that are more like belt to letters, those are the ones that, yeah, I can hit them hard and I'll drive them. But like if I at all try to take one of those out, I got to get lucky and just hit an absolute missile. Like that's the only way I'm ever going to get something like that out 300 feet. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's just the way I swing or what, but yeah, definitely. So again, in U-Trip, I tend to hit a lot more of those liners because it's just the height of the ball. But again, talking about 5-man versus, 4 outfielders, I love being able to hit gaps because again, that's the thing I started working on at the beginning of COVID because I couldn't do anything else. So I went out with my tee and I just was like, I got to learn to really hit backside because one of the pickup groups that Jason and I both play in started shifting to the pull side on me. And I was like, oh, well, if they're going to shift, that's not okay. So I was like, if I'm that obvious, I got to start learning it. So now
we'll play left center field. We'll stand about 325 feet out there, and you'll hit it 335 feet, and we'll catch it. And you're mad because there's no fence.
Well, and that's why I got to keep it low now, and I want to hit it to that right field gap too. I'm gonna gap those guys, and that way, if for some reason I'm running that day, because I'm not a fast runner, that's one thing we'll talk about, I'm sure, a lot. The difference between the two of us, I am a probably average or below runner, and Jason is like a D1 level sprinter. So it's a big difference in our game there. Sure. But if I happen to get on my horse that day, it's a lot easier to get from second to third with a throw coming from the right field than it is from the left field. So I like hitting that opposite side, especially when you have those gaps in a 5-man outfield or 5-man infield with the gaps in the outfield, which again, maybe aside from 1 or 2 games, I think I've only exclusively seen 5-man infields in U-Trip in the tournaments. I don't know about you, but
what I've heard from people that play USA softball at the highest level. So we also play in the NAGA leagues, which is the North American Gay Athletic Association of America. In tournaments there, they have divisions rating from A, which is the top division, down to E, which is kind of the entry level, inclusive level. Yeah. In the A division, which is one below what we play B, the A division will prominently play 5-man with a 3-man outfield. But yeah, by and large,
only at the highest level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even here in the city, in the highest level of league, we don't play 5-man infields. But it's predominant in U-Trip. I think the only time I've ever seen in USSSA that we didn't play 5-man was in co-ed.
Yeah, that makes sense. I haven't played nearly as much co-ed recently. I did before COVID. I played for a couple of co-ed teams here and there, but yeah, I think you're right about that. I get it. Especially, I don't know, maybe it is part of a function of the lower pitches that you're going to drive a ball lower more often. That especially if your hitters are, they aren't just dead pull or whatever, and they can hit to wherever. If you got 4-man infield, those are easy gaps to find, and you could just, if you got a team that's good at just hitting their spots, they could just hit singles all day. So I get it. Like, it makes sense, but as a guy who likes to never hit the ball on the ground if I can avoid it and try to just line everything, having gaps in the outfield, is just like, I'm ready to party. Like, I'm excited about that. So yeah, I love it.
One thing I've noticed, having played in a couple of U-Trip tournaments over the last couple of months, is with the lower pitches, I'm a lot more effective at being able to go middle away, as opposed to with the higher pitches where it's a little bit harder to really find those pitches to square up to the right side as a right-handed batter.
Yeah.
When it comes in a little bit flatter, I'm finding that I'm able to time it where the ball is right over the plate, as opposed to, where we're looking at when the ball needs to land on the plate, we're kind of getting ahead of it.
Yeah.
So
And you're meeting it higher
with the
too.
style of pitch,
Yeah.
it's easier to find a pitch that's going to be right over the plate or even a little past, and then drive it to the right side.
Yeah.
To hit that gap in the right center field area. Whereas, when we play in ASA tournaments, I'm typically a kind of left to center kind of hitter.
But just nukes every time.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
That's the idea. Yeah. I don't know. I've kind of changed my approach here and there on hitting backside, but yeah, I think I tend to agree. The lower the pitch, as far as like height, when it's maybe crossing where the plate is, the lower it is, I think it probably is a little easier to hit to the right side. And I actually wonder if it's not so much about the height of the pitch as about how it makes me swing. So
okay.
I feel like, because I have to purposely not do this. I feel like sometimes when I'm trying to hit backside purposely, I will tend to like dip and uppercut a little bit, not a ton.
Sure.
And if I'm not focused on it, I will just pop it up over there. Now, sometimes I get away with it because, again, just the nature of how I swing to that side, I get a pretty nasty slice to it. So I can still get away with it sometimes, but like if I'm doing what I want to do, it's not popping it up and getting lucky. It's, I want to drive that ball and have it slice and then hopefully roll towards the foul pole and, get into foul territory while it's, after it lands fair. But
sure. I think that's totally something that you can emphasize. And it's when you're trying to do something that's outside of kind of what your normal swing is. And I fall victim to this all the time too, is you're trying so hard to hit to the right side that you change the way that your bat path is, and
forget how to hit. Yeah.
It causes you to almost put your hands too much forward, and the head of the bat doesn't stay flat. It actually dips.
Yep.
And you scoop the ball as opposed to really driving through it. And I totally understand where you're coming from that.
Yeah. And it always happens too when I'm not thinking, and I'm trying to hit to the right side, I'm not thinking too hard about it, and I just try to waylay the ball. I rarely have good success when I'm trying to just barrel the ball super hard to the right side. It's when I stop and I think about it, and I will maybe instead of swinging 95%, I'm swinging 85, 75%, but I really think about throwing the bat head in that direction. And I can still put one out there 300 feet sometimes, but if I try to really barrel it, I will pop up way more often than I want to. Not that I ever want to, but still, I'll just put it up in the air instead of, if I kind of throw the bat head in that direction, it'll just kind of get out there and get down before it gets to the outfield. Sometimes it'll get over the outfielder, but usually my goal is try to hit it at the right fielder with a nasty slice. And nothing against right fielders, but if there's going to be a liability on the field, sometimes they put them there. They don't always.
Is that why they put you out there in middle school?
Yes, it is. In Little League, they were like, nobody's going to hit it there. It's fine.
Everything comes full circle.
Just let him stand there. Yeah. So now, and again, there's plenty of good right fielders. It's just, if you've got a liability and you got to hide them somewhere, sometimes that's the place. It's nice to not have one. I try to, especially when we go on tournament teams, usually we don't have any liabilities, but whatever.
The liabilities come later in the day when somebody's been drinking too much.
Yeah, right. Or last time I was at one of those tournaments, it was 97 degrees, and the outfielders had been running around for the last 4 hours, and they were all just
especially when you've got 3 guys
done.
out there.
Yeah, with 3 guys out there, and they were just done. You could tell they didn't have a sprint left in them. But yeah, I think again, while a lot of those things aren't specific to USSSA, I think we do see them a lot more often. A lot more often in U-Trip, but I like it. It'd been a while. I hadn't played U-Trip out here until recently, and I was in a league for U-Trip back in Illinois, which I used to play every week. So it's kind of nice to get back to that. Just, you hit the ball where you're like, oh, I hit that ball pretty well, and instead of it going 325, it goes 365.
Right?
You know,
So
unless
let's
it's
talk
hot
about
and then
that.
it's just a mush ball. Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
talk
go for
about
it.
that. So, you've got your ASA USA that uses a 52-300, and I don't know if you looked this up after our conversation a while back, but
Oh, I need to look
the
it up
difference
again.
between all those metrics of what that means. But you've got the ASA ball that's a 52-300,
Yep.
which is typically not as hard,
Right.
or people don't feel like it's as hard as the 44-375 softballs that you're using in
Scientifically not as hard, just so
Yeah.
you know.
physics.
It's physics. Physics is important.
You've got USSSA that uses this 44-375, and anybody that I've ever talked to is like, I love hitting those
Yeah.
U-trip balls because they're harder and they go further.
Yeah. They hurt more when they hit you.
And I was telling you that from my experience, I actually hit an ASA ball better than I hit a U-trip ball. I don't know that there's any science behind that
Do you
or
think-
whatnot, but I know that those U-trip balls are more susceptible to environmental changes.
That's true. I will concede that for sure. Now, okay. Let's think about this. So, we live on the peninsula side of San Francisco Bay Area, where it never gets colder than like 50 degrees, and it never gets warmer than about 85 on the hottest day. We'll have like one day here or there. So like, as things go, pretty moderate as far as temperatures. But pretty much every time we play a U-Trip tournament, and again, I think this is just more like a cultural where things are played, all the U-Trip tournaments are almost always on the other side of the bay where they don't get the moderate weather. And I don't know what the temperature's been like for past tournaments you were at. The last one I was at, again, it was like, we played our first game at 10 or 11 in the morning and it was 89 degrees. And then by the time we were playing at 3 in the afternoon, it was 94 or 95 and felt like 100. So it was super hot. Thankfully, it doesn't get super humid because that's a whole extra factor we used to deal with that in Illinois because it gets mega humid over there. And it was just, the air is thick and the ball's mushy. Like it just wouldn't go anywhere. I wonder if maybe that has something to do with why you feel that way. Maybe you've just been hitting the ball when it's mushy. Maybe you should play a U-Trip tournament at 75 degrees and you'll just fall in love.
Yeah, we might. So, Cameron and I mentioned earlier this week, we played in a playoff softball game, which is a USA or ASA style game. We played here in the city on Wednesday night. Unfortunately, we lost 8-4.
It was
Bats
tough.
just didn't show up.
It was tough. You
But
can't
we
score
played
four.
in
You
a
can't score four.
San Francisco, what is a double D division, which is a more competitive non-composite division. So it tends to level out the playing field of the better hitters because you're using at most a 50-50, so a half composite, half steel, or a completely steel bat. But this weekend we're playing in the USA Nationals tournament in Fremont, and that's going to be a U-Trip tournament, and we're talking full composite bats, but they are also doing compression testing.
Yeah.
So at least we know that there's going to be some checking, because we've gone to some of these tournaments where they're just like, does it have a U-Trip stamp? Let it ride.
Go for it.
We don't care.
They don't even check that half the time. They don't even look.
The weather looks like it's going to be mid 80s. So at least we're talking about 10 to 15 degrees cooler than what we've played in the last couple of months. So
it'll be
maybe
little
we'll
cooler.
see a difference there. And, next episode we can cover how that tournament went and whether or not we noted
Hopefully
an impact on the
reports.
temperature of the flight of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, I know it happens, but trying to determine how much it matters, that's always hard. It's like it definitely has an effect, but is it 3%? Is it 30%? You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
it's hard to say, or is it just, I just swung like crap that day. Like, you know, like who knows? Yeah. It is strange. It's very strange. Especially because sometimes I'll have to remind myself, like I'll go out there, like the last tournament I was at, went out there, didn't even think about the temperature being a factor at all as far as like, how the ball's flying. And it was hot, so I was tired too. You just, after a couple hours, the heat just kind of wears on you. And I was just like, man, I just cannot hit this ball hard today. Like and I thought it was all like, man, I'm just not, I don't have it today. And then upon thinking back on it, I'm like, oh, was that ball just like mushy and hot? And maybe I was barreling it and it just wasn't flying. But because I hit a few balls pretty hard that when it came off the bat, I thought to myself, because unfortunately, these tournaments are only one. At least that tournament was only one home run per game. So we'd either already used it, or I can't remember the situation. It happened twice where we'd either already used our home run, or there's nobody on base or something. So I didn't want to hit a home run, and I felt like I barreled the ball, and thankfully it dropped about 10 or 15 feet short and, bounced off the wall, double. One got past the guy, got a triple. But like, I felt like, thinking back on that, any other day where it was 75 degrees, like either one of those balls I felt like would have been over by 30 feet instead of short by 20 feet. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say, but I would say either way, being aware of it is probably pretty important. Being aware that, hey, this ball might be mushy today, you might be able to just swing away and not worry about it if you got a home run limit, or you might say, hey, I don't even want to try swinging hard. I want to put everything behind the infield, in front of the outfield. Just try to put it out there and just take your singles and have at it. On base is king, so
we'll get into that in another episode as well.
I think you'll agree with me, but you never know.
Yeah,
you might surprise me.
That's interesting. I don't know that I've ever actually thought about the conditions and the density, or in this case, lack thereof, and taking that into account when I'm at the plate.
I always think about it after the fact, so maybe I need to start thinking about it when it actually matters. But it always occurs to me later. So I don't know.
You're reflective, not proactively considering.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
Another thing that I was thinking about as we're talking through this, and it could just be that I'm unique, but bat selection in ASA USA versus USSSA. Do you find that you use the same type of bat in both, or do you change the style of bat that you use when you're in one versus the other? And just for the listeners, we're talking about the two kind of general styles of bat, which you can get is a balanced bat where the weight is evenly distributed across the barrel, or you have an end-loaded bat where you have a little bit of extra weight at the end of the bat, which allows you to help build bat speed as you come through your swing. So I'd love to hear if you take a different approach, and then I can get into kind of my side too.
Well, I generally like a little bit of extra weight at the end, because I feel like a lot of my power comes from that flick at the end, that when you really get it whipping around. And I feel like I don't know if the actual weight at the end, actually creates any force as much as it just, because I can feel it out there, I have a better feel for like how to swing it. Like if I had a dowel rod, you can kind of swing it a little bit and you can kind of feel it. But if you have a hammer, you can really feel the weight at the end, and it's really easy to get that feel for it. So I don't know if it's the actual weight at the end, or if it's just how it feels that makes me get extra whip, or what I feel like is extra whip. But I generally tend towards an end-loaded bat. Now, granted, recently I've got new bats over here. There's a lot
of colors going on back there.
I have a lot of
bright colors.
That's true. There's a lot of bright colors back there. I used to almost always have mostly it was all DeMarini, but I had some DeMarini, had a Worth, Mikan, and I'd swung just here and there. I'd swung a Monster bat, and I'd heard all these good things. And then one of the guys on his Sharks team, it's the jersey he's got right now, on our Sharks team had a Monster. It's the M2 technology, 2-piece, and the thing just absolutely just flies off that bat. And so I was sold, and then it was this mission. I need to get me a Monster bat. I'd had kind of this thought of, there's a guy we both know in a pickup group we play with, shout out to Max, who had a
Gorilla Finesse,
who had a the old original 2017, 2018, whatever it was, Monster DNA, and I swung it a few times and it was crazy. Like when you hit it in the right spot, it just would fly forever. And so that was kind of always the pinnacle of where I wanted to be. Could never find one, of course, because I didn't discover this bat until 2019, 2020, whenever it was, a couple years after they stopped being made, basically. And so then I'm like, all right, I'm going to order a Monster bat. I know Monster. I know you're small. I know you can't get your stuff as fast as the big ones. I get that. But I waited quite a long time. I had one on order, waited forever, did get it eventually, but I got so impatient that in the meantime, I found a guy that was selling a DNA, bought the DNA, and then literally 2 weeks later, another guy we know who's a Monster rep was like, hey, we got these bats that are available. If you guys want one, I'm like, I want one, you know? So I bought that one. So I had one. And then like another 2 or 3 weeks later, the one I had on order for like 8 months came in. So all of a sudden I had 3 Monster bats and I'd had 0 before. And I love them all. And they're all mid-load, which is different for me. I feel like I can still feel like kind of that hammer whip action with them, but I don't know. Like it almost feels a little bit easier that the weight of the bat is right behind the ball instead of being out at the end creating whip for the inside of the bat. I don't know how to explain it, but I do like that mid load, and so because of that, I got look. I pointed right at it. I got
almost like you meant to do it.
I meant to do it. This blue guy right here. This what is that? A Easton Fab 4. I got the end load version, and I like it. I actually hit the ball pretty well with it. I haven't put a ton of swings on it yet, so I don't want to put a full review. Jury's still a little out, but it feels good so far. But I did notice, again, could have been hot, could have been tired, could have been all the above at that last tournament. When we got into like game 3 out of 4, where we've been there for 3 or 4 hours at that point, I don't know if it was just in my head or what, but I felt like I was like dropping the end, like I was dipping it a little bit, and so I grabbed one of our Captain Jamie's bats, and it was more. I think it was actually a balance. It was a balanced Nautilus, DeMarini Nautilus, and I don't know if it's just because it felt lighter or what, but it was a lot easier to just base hit the ball with that. And again, may have just been a function of hot and tired. So for me, jury's still a little out on what I prefer in U-Trip. I think I'm pretty solidly in the Monster mid-load for ASA USA, but I don't know for sure. I'm still kind of playing around with it, and hopefully I don't have to buy like 12 bats to figure out which one I actually like, which is kind of what happened with... That's what happened with ASA. I bought all these bats, and then I got these monsters. I'm like, I don't even know I own these other ones. I had to try to sell all these bats afterwards. So anyway, that's my longest-winded answer ever. How about you,
To
Jason?
date.
What do you think? To date. Yet. Until next time, and then it'll be even longer.
So I'm with you. When we play in our leagues in ASA, I own one of the favorite bats that I've ever swung was a 2018 USA Flipper by DeMarini.
Yep. Great bat.
You owned one as well. I think half of our Sharks
do.
team actually has a bat.
I broke it actually.
And I found that thing had tremendous pop.
Yeah.
I had one swing in Vegas last January where I took an ASA ball and put it about 350.
Yeah.
And it felt like I just hit a wiffle ball. It just came off so smoothly. But I find that two things happen with end loaded bats, at least for me. I'm not upper body strength wise, anywhere near like the strongest guy.
Yeah, like those big guys. Yeah.
I'm not up there throwing up a bunch of weight on the bench. I'm not doing a bunch of upper body work. So I'm more susceptible to fatigue at the plate when it comes to an end loaded bat. I find that, my control when I'm tired or when I'm just not feeling strong, it definitely deteriorates throughout a long day. And the percentage of me squaring the ball up with an end loaded bat definitely falls off as the day goes on.
Makes sense.
I think that's why I've really liked swinging that Monster mid load, which is, it's almost like a happy medium between a balanced bat and an end loaded bat, where it gives you a little bit of the increased bat speed, but it doesn't kind of require as much dexterity and control throughout the bat path, because it's not completely at the end. And so it's not picking up as much speed throughout the swing path, which helps you kind of maintain hand control and the ability to like square the ball up like you're looking forward to.
It doesn't hurt that they're 25 ounces too.
Yeah.
For the most, I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them.
But I mean, I think in general, USA, ASA softball, we both tend to swing a lighter bat,
Yeah.
Other than in our non-composite leagues where we're swinging your 28 ounce
extra heavy
2018 steel, those DeMarini steel bat lines, by the way, if you're in a non-composite league, those are the best bats we've ever swung.
Yeah.
I have a 2016 steel. He swings the 2018. If you go in any competitive team in San Francisco that plays non-composite, they have at least 2 of those bats.
Yeah.
Whether it be
one.
the 2020 or the 2018 model, somebody's going to have one.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, when it comes to USSSA, I'm swinging right now a Worth balanced bat that's 27.5 ounces, which is also kind of just a really strange weight.
Yeah,
but
they do a lot of halves in U-Trip, I've noticed. I don't hardly ever see that in ASA, but
the balanced bat has just allowed me to really expose that right center field gap, like we talked about at the beginning, just because I have a lot more control throughout the swing, and as the day goes on, the bat doesn't start feeling heavier for me. You know, so even though I'm getting fatigued, I still have the same control of the bat, and I'm not worried about this extra momentum throughout my swing really changing how I'm controlling it as the bat goes through the hitting zone.
Yeah.
So I've kind of leaned towards the balanced bat in USSSA, just because it gives me a little bit more control and has allowed me to be a little bit more strategic about where I place the ball.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Because again, we're playing tomorrow. We're playing a tournament tomorrow, and again, it's going to be a little cooler than the last time I played, but it's still going to be hot-ish. It's going to be upper 80s, maybe even low 90s. I'm definitely keeping that in my head because again, I just happened to try it last time when it was really hot. I'm definitely keeping in my head the later that we get in the day to maybe just think about putting down the end load, pick up the balanced, just trying to get just to be able to put it out there. And again, we only have 1 home run, like maybe if we got 2 men on and it's the 4th or 5th, it's starting to get later in the game, I might go up there, just try to swing away. But for the most part, all I'm trying to do is just put the ball into the outfield, try to hit a gap, try not to hit it over, So if a balanced bat's gonna do that for me, especially again, if I'm starting to get tired later in the day, I'm in. I don't care. A balanced bat doesn't feel awful to me. It doesn't feel super foreign to me. It just, I guess I got a little bit obsessed with just destroying balls for a while, and so it
does feel nice though, right?
It is, and again, and I guess we didn't really talk about this before, but on an end loaded bat, at least in my opinion, a lot of times when you hit the sweet spot, it flies forever. But the sweet spot is smaller, and if you miss it, it's not forgiving. It's not like a big barrel balanced bat where the sweet spot's however 8 to 10 inches long, whereas you might have like a 4 to 5 inch spot on a end loaded bat that is where you're really going to barrel the ball. So that's part of the consideration too, especially again if you're trying to base it, if you're trying to right side. Well, we keep saying backside, we're both right-handed batters, just so we know. So other side for you lefties, but we'll always be referring from the right side of the bat or right side of the box. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to keep that in mind though this weekend, just because it's a problem sometimes.
The other 2 things that I've found, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this too, when we're swinging those end-loaded bats, they almost swing an ounce or 2 heavier than you would normally swing. So, you swing a 27-ounce balanced bat or a 26-ounce end-loaded bat, you may feel like those bats swing the same.
Yeah.
And the other thing about it is that the balanced bats, if you have a little bit of a heavier balanced bat, it may help offset some of the kind of bat speed that you're getting or generating with those lighter end-loaded bats. So when I'm swinging that 27.5-ounce balanced bat, which has a 12.5-inch barrel, by the way, which is lovely.
Yep.
The added 1.5 ounce weight that I'm losing from that 26-ounce end load, I'm adding that extra weight. It's still putting that extra force behind the swing, even though it's not end loaded. And so it still helps generate some of that bat speed just because it's heavier.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because I think that same thing about, again, the steel bat when we go metal bats, because the one we use is heavier than anything else I use, composite. And so that extra mass definitely has something to do with it for sure. But I don't know, it's always this like fight in my head of like, is lighter better? Is heavier better? At what point, if I can swing the bat at a certain weight and I can swing it at the max, because I mean there's obviously, I don't know, I think about physics a lot when I do this. So like there's a maximum speed that you can swing a bat just based on human capability and whatever. And if I can swing a 26 ounce bat this speed, but I can still swing a 27 that same speed, then you should do a 27. But like determining those minor increases or decreases in bat speed are like super impossible. And then also to go back what you were talking about too, about the in-loaded bats feeling heavier, because they definitely do. And again, there is science on that. I looked this stuff up. I don't know why, but they call it swing weight.
Too much free time.
I do sometimes, and you can actually figure your own like swing weight of your own bats, but it's like this huge, like hard process to do. But basically, what it's just doing is it's just like, you know, if there's more weight at the end of the fulcrum, it's harder to pick it up, just even if you're just picking it up, because it's heavier farther away from you, whereas if it's closer to you, it's lighter. So it's just part of that swing weight. You know, you could swing, like I've got one, I don't swing it anymore, I've got one full ounce end load 26 ounce bat, right? And so that's a pretty heavy end load. Swinging that versus maybe swinging a 28 balanced probably feels pretty similar, but I couldn't tell you which one I hit better. You know, I don't really know. And because it's there's so many factors. It's like, does this one just have a better trampoline effect? Is it just, you know, is it just hotter, or is it actually the mass of the bat that makes it better, or is it the fact that I'm swinging faster make it better? So
Sure.
I think at the end of the day, there's no good answer, unfortunately, but
Honestly, at that point, you just got to go with what feels right and
I
that you're the
know.
most confident in, because when you're in the box, if you feel confident, you're probably going to hit the ball better
Yeah.
than if you're going up there and you're just like, is this the right bat? Do I feel good about
Yeah.
this? Like, you want to take all variables out of the equation when you step into the box, and you just want to be confident and just find
Yeah.
something to hit.
It's the bat that doesn't make you think about the bat is the best bat to swing, right?
Right.
The one that doesn't make you, that you're not aware of, that's the best bat to swing. So
Or as you constantly remind me as I step into the plate, make sure you watch the ball.
yeah, Jason likes to ask me for advice, and I always have very sage advice like watch the ball and swing flat. That's pretty much the only things I ever tell him. So much
Confirmed.
advice, so much advice I have to dole out. Yeah, I think you're right. It's just whatever feels good in your hand at that point. I tend to, thankfully, I tend to overanalyze stuff like that while I'm not playing. But usually when I play, I'm usually pretty free of that stuff. Like it doesn't.
One piece of advice that I will give, and anybody that's listening can take this for what it's worth. I think when I started to get into USSSA again, because it had been a long time since I had played, I kind of bought into the hype of everyone telling me what they thought was the best bat.
Yeah.
And there's this Mikan highlighter bat that's bright yellow, and everyone's like, this is the best bat I've ever swung. Or, the Freak 23, which is another Mikan, which everyone's going to say, this is the best bat. Or, everybody's got an opinion on that. And so I would go into these tournaments as kind of just a fresh, I had no opinion on bats. I just had to listen to what people were telling me. And I would go and I would change bats 2 or 3 different times during the tournament or even in a game, trying to find the right bat for me. And eventually I fell back on the 27.5 ounce bat that no one else in our tournament team would swing, but it was my bat and I knew it.
Yeah.
And I started hitting well again. And at that point, I'm just like, if I'm going to test new bats, I'm going to do it during a batting practice, and I'm going to find something that I'm going to be comfortable with, and I'm going to keep swinging that. And, I don't really care that no one else swings my bat or no one else thinks it's good. As long as I, hit well with it and I get on base, that's all that anybody really cares about at the end of the day. So it's really all about what your personal preference is.
Yeah, and especially in U-Trip when the ball flies farther, like if you hit the ball 250 with one bat, but another bat you hit 350, but then you hit another one 360, doesn't matter. If the one you hit 350 you hit better, they're both home runs. Like it doesn't matter. So
Sure.
it's really
the question
more
is,
about,
are you going to hit one 350 but bat 500 on the day, or
Exactly,
are you going to hit one
exactly.
315 but bat 800? I think everybody and
I'll
their
take
brother's going
800.
to say hit 800 every day,
every time. I would
because
love
that's
to
going to
bat
be the thing
800.
that's going to help you and your team win.
Yeah, you can't. Again, another discussion, but you can't win if you're not on base. It just doesn't happen. So it's whatever's best for you. And again, take that for what it's worth. But if you got a piece of junk, old, crappy bat that nobody likes, but you hit well with it. I mean, Carlos, our buddy Carlos, he swings that DeMarini steel in composite leagues a lot of times because he just hits well with it. So who cares? You know, if you're not trying to hit the fence every time and you're like, hey, my job is to be, you know, I would argue Carlos's strong point is on base percentage plus being able to leg out doubles pretty, you know, above average. So like, you don't need to have a bat that you can hit the ball out a ton of times if that's your goal, you know, which is a pretty good goal to have, you know.
Yeah.
Be on base 700% and, you know, hit a double for every 2 singles. Like, that's a pretty good day, you know, a pretty good career if you can do that. So thank you for watching, everyone. We really appreciate it. Depending on what platform you're watching us on, like, subscribe, leave us a comment, anything you can do to let us know that you like what we're doing here. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.